Thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you here at re:Invent 2024. And today I'm going to be giving a talk about Amazon's Just Walk Out system and streamlining autonomous checkout with RFID. My name is Nathan O'Neill, Director of Technology with Amazon's Just Walk Out team in the AWS Solutions team. So today we'll be walking through a few elements of Just Walk Out. First off, we'll be talking about our value drivers in general with Just Walk Out solutions. Then we'll give you an overview of the Just Walk Out technology, both the standard computer vision version and then the RFID. We'll be looking at some of the challenges in particular in the apparel retail market segment, and then we'll walk you through the journey of how we developed the RFID solution for RFID. At the end, we'll wrap up with some of the key benefits of RFID, not just for frictionless retail and autonomous checkout, but also other aspects of RFID technology. So first off, what are some of the value drivers of Just Walk Out? I like to think about it as the top line and the bottom line, so we'll start with the top line. The big thing for retailers is revenue. And so how do we do that? There's really two primary ways to increase revenue in a store. One of them is getting more people into the store, getting them through quicker. The other one is higher basket size. The Just Walk Out solution is really targeted at that first value driver, which is getting people into a store, letting them shop efficiently, and letting them move through the store efficiently. The second area that we're seeing growing adoption of is expanded hours of operation. With a Just Walk Out solution, we need far fewer attendees in a store, and a lot of our stores are now operating in partially or fully unattended mode. That means you don't need associates in the store when people are shopping. Again, that helps with the top line revenue. The third area is enhancing the shopper experience. Retailers really want to have a differentiated solution. They want to be able to bring shoppers into their store. They want to have something that makes their store unique. And one of the ways that we've done that with Just Walk Out is this frictionless checkout experience. Fourth area, and key to value in a store, is reducing theft and loss and any shrink in terms of if you may have a stock take and not be able to count everything, you may lack inventory in a store and not be able to sell. Even theft prevention is another big area. And we found that with autonomous retail, by having more technology in stores to monitor who is taking what and whether or not they've paid for it, that definitely reduces theft and loss. Fifth area is improving labor efficiency. So being able to run a store with fewer people definitely improves the fundamental costs of a store. The other aspect of labor efficiency is having associates be able to do other things in a store. So if they're not having to man checkout stations, they can also help people find what they're looking for. Another key area with RFID in particular that we'll look at is the ability to do inventory stock taking quickly. And then all of these areas combine to grow the store performance. That's the bottom line for the store, so how much profit a store can make. And by using these aspects of technology, we've been able to let our customers do just that. So in our standard computer vision-based Just Walk Out stores, here are some of the elements that you will see in every store. There's entry gates, there's exit gates, and the exit gates typically are where a customer will authenticate into a store. There's various means of authentication, from credit card to mobile wallet. Some stores allow a QR code on an app to enter the store. And we usually use computer vision-based technology. So we have our own custom cameras. You can see here in the ceiling, there's several cameras installed in rows. We also have our custom compute that performs machine learning processing on the edge And that was developed really as a way to reduce the latency for a lot of the edge algorithms. There's two main algorithms that we run in a regular JWO or a Just Walk Out store. One of them is the tracking, so we track people as they're walking around the store. The other one is to determine what products that person took. And that's where our sensor fusion technology comes in. In some stores where products are very small or palmable or very thin, we will use sensor fusion to enable counting and higher accuracy. Of course, in any store, we have a network. All of these devices are Ethernet-based devices, some USB-based devices. So the network here is key. We do have our custom network along with connectivity. We have options for both single or dual WAN uplinks that allows very high uptime, high availability for these stores. And then, of course, we have exit gates. So in some of our stores, we have motorized gates. In other stores, we have manual push gates. But again, this lets us have a very high security bar in terms of making sure that customers aren't intentionally or unintentionally leaving with items that they didn't pay for. And finally, we do have associate tools. The associates in a store can interact with the technology. These are third-party, off-the-shelf devices they can use for inventory management and being able to see what's happening in the store with the technology. This is an example of a convenience store that's actually in a hospital in the UK. It's the Market Express store in the United Kingdom. So another example of where we've taken our core technology and expanded into different verticals. The other verticals that we sell into include sports stadiums, travel, and education. Now today we will be talking about applying the general Just Walk Out approach to apparel retail stores. Just to give you an idea, this is an example of the Pro Shop at Lumen Field in Seattle, where both the Seahawks and the Sounders, depending on who has the game, they're able to install their merchandise in this store. One of the things you'll notice in this store is very high ceilings. This is in an indoor-outdoor stadium. So there's no cameras present above the store. All of our technology is actually installed at the exit, and we'll get to that as well. So thinking about the apparel retail space, what are some of the challenges? Getting shoppers into stores, as I said, is a key one. If there's long lines at a store, it does deter customers. If there's a lot of friction, either getting into the store or shopping or checking out, that's another aspect. Of course, having inventory on hand, having the right sizes, the right colors, etc., is important. That's where we also get into differentiating shopper experiences. If all of the stores are the same, then there's less reason to go to one store versus another. And we believe that having frictionless retail is a differentiating experience and helps with our customers. A third area is checkout line abandonment. We'll talk about some of the stats for that in a minute. Staffing challenges, both in terms of having enough associates at any one time. We've heard anecdotes of some stadium stores where people called in sick or they weren't available and so they couldn't actually open the pop-up store on that day. The other challenge with staffing, of course, is increasing labor costs. So if you can run the store more efficiently, you can help with your costs. Inventory visibility is a big challenge in retail. It takes a long time to go through and do an inventory stock take, and RFID in particular is a good application of that. And then, as I mentioned, shrink, otherwise known as loss. Any type of loss, if you lose garments in the back of house, in the front of house through theft, this is another area that we want to manage. So I mentioned the long lines at entry and checkout. So we conducted a survey in 2023, and 73% of consumers found that long checkout lines left them with feelings of frustration and boredom. And 75% of survey respondents have left a physical checkout line in the previous 12 months. So that's a lot of people who are stepping out of line because they don't like the checkout. As I mentioned, staffing shortages. We've seen that some stores have not been able to open. The other aspect is training staff, so being able to hire staff from different areas of your business to be able to do the same tasks. That also helps. And then the third area, as I mentioned, is inventory tracking and counting. So we've been able to see that typically inventory through manual counting is only 95% efficient. And by applying RFID tools, we've been able to increase that efficiency to 99%. Moreover, the cycle count time for a large store can go from days down to hours or even tens of minutes to count all of the garments in a store. This is a key aspect of RFID technology, and we'll be walking through a demo of that in a little bit later. So at this point, I'd like to step back a bit and to talk about radio frequency technology in general. So cameras, of course, exist in the visible light spectrum. Camera technology has been around for a long time, over 100 years from still cameras. Today we have digital cameras. A lot of that is because we as humans have evolved to use our eyes to see things. And so cameras have had a long history of technical development. There exists the rest of the spectrum below the visible light spectrum in terms of the radio spectrum. And so we see a lot of applications today in radar, millimeter wave radar in particular, for very high resolution imaging. And if any of you have ever seen those images, you'll see that they can be just as crisp as a visible light spectrum image. As we get further down in the radio frequency spectrum, we have satellite systems, mobile phones, TVs, terrestrial radio, and way down into AC power. And where does the RFID fit in? So it typically fits in anywhere between 400 megahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. There's many other devices that operate in that frequency as well. There are some lower frequency tags as well. NFC is down in the 13 megahertz area, but we won't talk about that today. So in particular, the 900 megahertz RFID tags is what has been adopted in the retail industry. And so that's largely where we built our technology. So there are two types of tags, there's passive and active. And this is an example of a tag that we developed with Avery Dennison. They're one of our development partners. And the difference with this tag is that it can still work reliably even if you have your hand on it. So it's much more robust at some applications, including retail. And every RFID tag has a coil on it that gets energized when you approach it with a reader, and then it can communicate, bidirectional communications. They can operate anywhere from a few inches up to 100 feet. And as I mentioned, in the US, they're operating in the 900 megahertz frequency. In Europe, it's a bit lower in the high 800 megahertz. And one of the challenges, of course, when you can read up to 100 feet is you want to be able to know which tags you're reading. And so that's an area that we focused our development efforts on so that we could develop this checkout experience. We've actually been working on RFID in Just Walk Out for several years. We first started looking at RFID in grocery stores to solve some of our problem with variable weight products. So for example, meat and seafood that you have to charge exactly the right weight for that product. And we got good results in the grocery stores that we tested in. What we found is that RFID is really good at counting. It's much better than a lot of the vision-based algorithms or even weight-based algorithms. And the other great benefit for RFID is that it can see through a lot of items, including cardboard, plastic, a lot of woven materials. And so its application for apparel, retail, it's just really a great fit. In particular, since we're already selling a lot of stores into the sports segment, And the sports segment is an area that we see a lot of long lines. We felt that it was a great fit for that market segment. So this is an example of what you might see at Lumen Field. These are circular merchandising fixtures with a lot of jerseys and t-shirts. And this is an area where computer vision really does struggle to exactly see how many of what you may have 2 or 3 of them, and it really has a hard time counting that. We knew that we could successfully count, and so then it was just a question of what type of solution should we implement in these stores to solve the problem. This is an image of our first generation RFID checkout solution. So one thing that's different compared to our other Just Walk Out stores is all of the technology in the store is implemented at the exit gates. And why is this important? It means that we can scale from a tiny store, 100 square feet, all the way up to 10,000, even 40,000 square feet. And you don't have to put cameras everywhere in the store. You may still have cameras in the store if you want to monitor traffic flow, if you want to see what customers are doing, or security cameras. But all of the Just Walk Out technology is installed in one place. So some of the advantage of that is it costs less to install it, and the time that it takes to install it is also much less. In the first generation, we put a lot of antennas in. We wanted to make sure that we could read all of the different tags as they were coming through. So we have them in both sides of the gates. We have them in the overhead construction that we had built. And one of the keys in our technology is the way that we've applied machine learning algorithms to the tags. As I mentioned, a system can read tags from up to 100 feet away. And so we analyzed a lot of these signals. We looked at the signal strength that the tags were sending back. And by using a time series of tag reads for both of the gates in multiple zones from multiple antennas, and using machine learning algorithms to learn what was actually happening when a shopper was authenticating, we've been able to produce a solution that's highly accurate. This was the very first RFID store that we opened. This was opened in April of 2023 in Climate Pledge Arena for the Kraken, and we got great reviews from our customers. They had a very short time. They could be in and out of a store in a couple of minutes. We followed up in August 23 with the first store at Lumen Field. And as I mentioned at the Pro Shop, we were able to reduce the number of associates as well as increasing the amount of business in that store. You'll notice in this store that some of the things we talked about the customer experience, there's very good visibility into the store. You can see everything in the store from outside. You'll see there's no lines. You're able to enter the store, shop. If you don't like what you want, you can leave the store. It's just a great customer experience in terms of being able to see what's happening. Another example is here, the Texas Rangers store. So we actually launched this 2 weeks before the World Series in 23. And they've also been able to see a huge increase in the amount of traffic, 10-second checkout times. They had a 2 to 3 times increase in the amount of items sold year over year. And it must be a success because they won the World Series 2 weeks later. I did want to talk about some of the journey that we go through when we develop our gates. So, as you know, Amazon has a leadership principle, customer obsession. We definitely obsess about the customer, the shopper experience going through our gates. one of the things we noticed with Generation 1 was that some customers didn't have anywhere to put their items, put their drinks as they were checking out. Some would put it on top of the gate. And so we thought, well, we can improve this. So we actually went through and we looked at many different industrial design approaches. We mocked a lot of them up. We built some of them. We tested them. We run hundreds of users through the gates. Here's an example of putting cup holders in place, putting barriers up so that they wouldn't put things on top of the gates. A lot of this, we can experiment with CAD tools, but we also build foam models. Sometimes we build full 3D printed models. Sometimes we can incorporate technology elements. For example, in cases where there is a lot of RF, we can put in see-through RF shields into the design. And we ended up looking at trays. We felt like trays is a good way to refine that concept. And coming up, we are now going to look at where our Gen 2 got us to. I'm going to play a short video so you can see for yourself what Generation 2 looks like.
In today's retail landscape, long checkout lines, labor shortages, and inventory blind spots can lead to lost sales and frustrated customers. What if we could eliminate those challenges? That's where Just Walk Out RFID lanes comes in. Our easy-to-install lanes can be set up in less than a day and integrate seamlessly with various payment methods, POS systems, and loyalty programs for a comprehensive solution, enabling you to shift your workforce from the registers to the sales floor, enhancing customer service. Here's how it works. Customers enter, choose their items, then use the lane to pay and walk out. It's that simple. No lines, no waiting, no hassle. Each product is tagged with an RFID tag, allowing our lanes to instantly recognize items as customers leave. The result? Transactions take as little as 7 seconds, not minutes, eliminating checkout bottlenecks and increasing overall sales. Retail is dynamic, and your technology should be too. Just Walk Out RFID lanes offers unparalleled flexibility. Whether you're running a pop-up shop or a large department store, the system scales without extensive downtime or construction. This means you can adapt your store layout, optimizing for customer flow and product placement without sacrificing the seamless checkout experience. And it's a complete retail solution. Conduct rapid inventory counts, get real-time inventory updates, and gain valuable insights into customer behavior. Just Walk Out RFID lanes, innovating on behalf of our customers. Contact us today to learn more and get started.
So you may think, well, that's too good to be true, right? But I'll show you in a video in a second that shows you how easily we can move our next generation into position. I do want to go over some of the key features that we've added into this. So we got a lot of feedback that our system took too long to build, was too expensive, as well as for a lot of these pop-up stores, it was too difficult to reconfigure the store. So the mobility of the solution was one of the key features that we wanted to build in. And a few things, that means you can move it around. It means you can do very flexible layouts. And building all the tech into one element means that we can ship this to a store in one crate. The second area is flexibility with different payment processing methods and POS systems, as well as loyalty programs. A lot of our retail customers have loyalty programs. Season ticket holders have loyalty. We wanted to be able to integrate that into the experience. So we've built in connectors within our APIs for the software to support multiple POS systems, multiple payment processors. We can either do fully integrated, what we call fully integrated, where we handle payments, to fully delegated, where the retailer handles the payments. And as well as that, we have loyalty programs where we can integrate with your specific loyalty provider. I mentioned accuracy. The accuracy of the inventory labor counting is critical. So with our system, every RFID tag has what's called an electronic product code, or EPC. With our system, we can provide a sales report showing all of the specific EPCs that are sold on any given day, which means you can accurately match that up with your inventory tracking system. We can integrate directly to it, so we can pull data out of sight of that. We can make sure that the item that's sold is actually in the master inventory list. And the other thing is that helps with security, because an item cannot be sold twice. So there's a lot of benefits, not just from RFID, but also integrations. And as I mentioned, with the accuracy, completing cycle counts very quickly, we've got a 96% accuracy, and similarly reduction in labor in running those cycle counts. Lastly, versatility. Because this is a modular unit, you can pair it up with your current POS system, you can pair it up with other systems, you can mix and match. As I mentioned, the video that you saw a few minutes ago, it really is just that easy. This video was taken 2 days ago when we wheeled our system in to the lobby of the Venetian Expo, and that's where we have our store running for the rest of this show. It can be installed with 2 people. We have casters underneath the system, and then once it's placed in position, it can be lowered down. You'll see that the credit card is actually a modular system. That can be swapped out depending on which payment processor or which credit card reader you want to use. And this is an example of the units that are installed in the Venetian today. I talked a little bit about some of the integrations that we provide. So the flexible payment provider options, we do support all of the major credit cards and payment processors, both in North America and in Europe, and we can connect to a variety of POS and ERP backends. I mentioned the integration with shopper loyalty programs. So we're working with all of the major loyalty providers in North America currently. And we can, since we have a cloud-based API system for integrations, we can pretty much work with any inventory systems or payment systems, authentication systems that you want to use. Analytics is another area. We can provide analytics reports of customer flow in a store, how many people are entering the store and exiting through the RFID lanes. And I mentioned loyalty. So this is how it works in our system today. There's actually a QR scanner that can be used to scan a loyalty app, as well as payments with a card or a mobile wallet. So it's a seamless 2-tap approach for a loyalty shopper, or a single tap approach for a standard shopper. The card reader also supports dip in case the tap is not working. And I talked a little bit about cycle counting. I wanted to show a demo of what it looks like to cycle count a rack of inventory. There's 20 items on this rack. Typically, you would have to go through and look at each tag. So this is an RFID scanning gun. It's Bluetooth paired with an iPhone. And this is a third-party app. And all you need to do is walk along the rack, and it will count all of the items. And you see it's counted 20 items. It also shows you the signal strength on each one. Just as another data point, we counted all of the items last night in the reInvent AWS merch store. We counted 17,000 items in, I think it was 20 minutes. So that's a pretty fast cycle count time. Tagging is another area. Most RFID tags are either source tagged at the manufacturer, but they can also be tagged on site, especially for pop-up stores, sports stadiums, concert stores. And this is an example of tagging an RFID tag. So the sticker that's being applied has both the label showing the price and the item description, as well as the embedded RFID tag on the back. And these can be applied before or after it's actually put on the garment. But that's how simple it is. And then I mentioned delivering results with our Just Walk Out RFID lanes. So we've seen 40 to 60% reduction in labor to operate a store, from 5 down to 2 or 3 associates. A big area is 4 times as fast checkout versus traditional POS, typically around 15 seconds versus 60 seconds. That includes fully taking your phone out, mobile wallet or credit card, and pushing through the gate at exit. And the 96% reduction in labor for cycle counting. Some of the feedback from our customers has been very, very impressive, drastically improving the fan experience by eliminating checkout lines. Miami Dolphins has been one of our great partners as well, and they are really looking forward to using the full suite of RFID management utilities. And lastly, I'd like to walk you back through our value drivers and discuss how RFID has helped that. So increasing store throughput, we've seen 2 to 3 times realized throughput in the RFID stores that we've built today. And that translates to no queues and a lift in year-over-year sales between 30 to 50% per store. We've been able to expand the hours of store operation for these stores. The stores used to operate only when there was a game. They've been able to open earlier and later with less associates. As I mentioned, sometimes the stores didn't even open at all because they didn't have associates. So we've been able to fix that. The shopper experience is greatly enhanced with visibility into the store. And we've also received anecdotes that year over year, there is less shrink from all of the RFID stores that have been built. We talked about labor efficiency for cycle counting. We've been able to bring in full boxes of t-shirts and scan them without opening them, up to 50 items in a box. And every one of our customers' stores has reported increased bottom line performance from each store. So these are examples where RFID is consistent with the rest of our Just Walk Out value proposition. And we think there's a great future in both RFID for self-checkout, but also RFID at large for enhancing retail apparel. With that, I'd like to thank you for joining me today. I would encourage you to come and see the AWS merch store.